Good afternoon, and thank you.
Hi.
Yes, Sharifah. We have a very special guest today, but before we bring on our guest and before we discuss this important, we have this important conversation, I'm going to ask you to do what I always ask you to do, and that's to go ahead and share this video because friends don't let friends miss out on Ask Sharifah. And you know what? This interview, I know all of them are important, but this interview is definitely very important. So if you're tuning in right now and you're listening to the show, if you have any questions, if you have any comments, please ask your questions and comments in the comment section, and I'll go ahead and read it to today's guest. So I would love to introduce Miss Kari Rosbeck. Good afternoon, Kari. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
You are so welcome. Thank you for being a guest on the show. And I want you to explain to people exactly what you do and you're a part of.
Absolutely. So I am very fortunate to be the president and CEO of the Tuberous Sclerosis Alliance. And Tuberous, sorry, I'm not sure what's happening. We're getting a little feedback. Do you hear that on your end or is it just on mine?
It may just be on yours, but it's good. We're good. I can hear you.
All right. Excellent. So the Tuberous, there you go. The Tuberous Sclerosis Alliance was founded 45 years ago this year by 4 really brave, incredible moms from Southern California. The Tuberous Sclerosis Alliance provides support and information to anybody impacted by a rare disease called tuberous sclerosis complex. We fund and drive research, and we raise public awareness as well as awareness among medical professionals to hasten the diagnosis and appropriate treatment for tuberous sclerosis complex. Tuberous sclerosis complex, also known as TSC, so we'll just call it that from this point forward, is a rare genetic disorder. It causes tumors actually to grow throughout the body and is the leading genetic cause of epilepsy and autism. And in the United States, it impacts about 50,000 Americans and more than 1 million people worldwide.
So you mentioned that TSC is tumors or that sort of thing. When did you first discover TSC? When was it discovered?
Tuberous sclerosis complex. TSC was first discovered as a rare genetic disorder in the late 1800s, in fact, if that's what you're asking. If you're asking when is it diagnosed in individuals with TSC, there are certain points along the lifespan where it can be diagnosed. It can actually be diagnosed in utero because of heart tumors. So if in utero we see on a baby 2 or more heart tumors, it's a probable diagnosis for TSC. Most people are diagnosed today, unfortunately, when their children begin having seizures. And there's a very common seizure in tuberous sclerosis complex called infantile spasms. And infantile spasms can look like a very simple head nod or a repeated startle reflex. The difference is it happens in clusters, several at a time, repeated over and over. And some infants can have hundreds of seizures literally a day. And if you think about that developing brain and all that electrical current going through a development brain, it really can cause cognitive difficulties, developmental difficulties for a lifetime. So really our goal is to raise awareness so that infantile spasms are recognized right away and treated immediately. That's so important. Other ways tuberous sclerosis complex may be identified is somebody may have a more mild case. We say mild meaning maybe they don't have seizures as a young child, but when they get older, especially if they're young women, they might get lung involvement. So they might notice shortness of breath, or they might have a lung collapse. Or in women and men, they can get generally non-malignant tumors on their kidneys and are diagnosed because they suddenly develop flank pain or back pain.
You mentioned earlier that it was started by a group of moms. Your organization, is it your organization that was started by a group of moms?
The Tuberous Sclerosis Alliance was started by a group of moms. I'm not one of them. Wonderful moms that, 2 of which are still involved with our organization today.
Okay, wonderful. Now, with this alliance, were any of the moms doctors?
No, no. In fact, at the time they started the organization, it's pre-internet, right? They got together because one of these moms actually had an article placed in Exceptional Parent, and then received letters from other parents, and then they got together. Today, it's so much easier. We can be in contact with each other right away, right, through internet and social media. But back in those days, it took a little bit more time to find ways to connect.
It would seem to me, and I always have this idealistic world, a belief of the world, where it would be doctors who will go out looking for more answers, but it typically is parents or mothers who are going through a situation. They're like, you know what, I have to find help for my baby. Then we go out looking for answers. We look for solutions, whereas professionals may not take on the same look. So those were moms. What got you started on focusing on this disease?
Oh, I had a mentor that became president and CEO of the Tuberous Sclerosis Alliance in 2001, and I had worked with him at other organizations. He brought me to the organization to really launch our new volunteer program and actually to go across the country and to start volunteer branches of our organization. So we created a movement, church basements, hospital rooms, people's living rooms, just giving folks the tools to run chapters, if you will, volunteer chapters in local communities across the country. Today we have 37 what we call community alliances across the nation.
What are some aspects with the community alliances that you feel are pertinent or necessary in getting out your message? Because I read your story, and I actually read your story online. I spent a lot of time searching the internet for people who are making a difference in the world. And when I read your story, I was like, well, this is very interesting. And to me, it was particularly interesting because it was something I had never heard of. I've never heard of TSC. I've never heard of anything like that. I have heard of autism. I have heard of ADHD, but this particular disease I had not heard of. What are some of the things that the groups are doing to increase awareness?
Such a great question. One of the things that we do with our volunteer leaders each March is we bring them to Washington, D.C., and we hold a march on Capitol Hill. And since 2002, there's actually been appropriation through the Congressionally Directed Medical Research Program through the Department of Defense. So they go and visit every congressional office. So whether they drop off a folder or have a pop-up meeting, but this year we had 472 scheduled meetings with congressional representatives across the country, right here in Washington, D.C. So like really lifting awareness from the federal level. The other thing they do in each of their communities is just to get the message out where they live. It's so important that people know that there are resources for them locally. So they partner with TSC clinics locally, usually in hospital settings, to provide clinical care, and then they host educational meetings. So really to educate folks that are living with this disease about how to address the different manifestations. They also hold support group meetings. And this time of year, really important, they hold a lot of special events. So we have a Comedy for a Cure event in Hollywood, but we also have Step Forward to Cure TSC walks all across the country that take place in April, May, June, and generally September, October, and early November.
Now that's very interesting to be able to have comedy events and fundraiser events and to increase awareness for this disease. But it would seem to me like this is a situation where it could be easily confused with something else. Like you mentioned, the baby was kind of startled. Sometimes babies get startled. Babies, may look a certain way, and we don't realize that they're having a seizure, that they're actually suffering from something. Do you have any tips or things that a parent can look for in their infant, just in case?
So I'll talk about TSC and I'll talk about infantile spasms. So with TSC, again, if you are having an ultrasound and they notice heart tumors, particularly 2 or more, that can lead to a probable diagnosis for tuberous sclerosis complex. And that allows us to get ahead of the disorder. Right now, we're conducting the first preventative clinical trial for epilepsy in the United States, and that's finding families whose babies have been diagnosed with TSC before the onset of their first seizure. Infantile spasms happens in about 30 to 40% of infants, so it's not 100%. Another way, we have clinical consensus guidelines. So you have two major components of the disease to be diagnosed, or one major and two minor. That's very complicated, but there's information on our website about that. Ash leaf spots on the skin, 3 or more of those ash leaf spots, they literally are white hypopigmentation spots on the skin. Might be another way. If you take out a black light, usually you can see a lot of white spots on the skin. And then MRI. So if a baby is suspected of having TSC, they'll often do an MRI to see if there's any brain involvement in TSC. With infantile spasms, whether you have TSC or there's another underlying cause of infantile spasms, we suggest you take out your smartphone. If your infant is having these kind of episodes that just don't look quite right, and you know, us parents, we have that instinct, right? We know when there's something just not quite right. Today, you can take out your smartphone and just capture a video. Send it to your pediatrician. If you're not happy with the response, you can go to an emergency room and have somebody see your child immediately and try to get an EEG.
What usually happens in these situations? Is it something that the infants tend to outgrow, like some other things that happen while they're young babies?
No, TSC is a lifetime disorder. It's a genetic disorder, so you're born with it. Some things can progress with TSC. It's really, really super important, though, to try to control those seizures right away. We know that if seizures aren't controlled, that it can lead to a lifetime of seizures that aren't controlled by medication. So it's critical to try to get seizure control immediately.
Okay. Again, if you are just now tuning in, we are speaking with Ms. Kari Rosbeck, and we are discussing TSC. So if you missed any of this interview, definitely want to pick it up and listen to it in the archives. If you are just now tuning in, if you have any questions or comments, please ask those in the comments section, and I'll go ahead and ask them. I just want to thank Sherry, Clark, Carla, Leona, Maureen, Reginald, Diana, Tanya, a couple more people for tuning in and for your support. So go ahead and share your questions, share your comments, because I believe this is a very important topic. It's definitely a topic that was important for me to cover. So again, Kari, thank you for all the information that you are providing. I have one of the questions that I have for you and for your organization and what you're doing. I know definitely you want more awareness, but other than that, that you want other people to do, like for instance, do you want parents to bring your children in early? What is it that you wish there was more of?
So we have an outstanding vision that we have created for TSC research for the next 5 years. Our goal is to change the course of the disease. I mentioned the PREVENT trial that is being conducted right now. So trying to take babies before they have their first seizure and prevent epilepsy. But the measurement of that clinical trial is really cognition. Have we had an impact in their cognition at 2 years old and 3 years old? So really trying to get earlier diagnosis is so critical for improved quality of life. Our research platform is something we believe we can prevent the other manifestations of TSC. We need to find those things that help us identify if somebody's going to have kidney tumors. Is somebody going to develop lung involvement? And then try clinical trials to address those manifestations and prevent them. That's really where we want to go. To do that, of course, takes money. It takes an investment. It takes an investment by our community participate in those studies and trials. It takes funds to be able to do, and we work with an outstanding group of clinicians who conduct these studies and trials. We educate the community, which helps in recruiting for those trials. We have this awesome new biosample repository, so people can give samples, whether it's blood or buccal cells, which is another way people can participate in research. We also have a preclinical consortium. So we're working with academic researchers, and we're working with companies who might have new therapeutics for epilepsy or tumor growth that maybe they want to try in TSC because it is an exceptional model system that might be applicable to other types of epilepsy or other tumor causing genetic syndromes. So there's a lot of ways that both companies can get involved, individuals with TSC can get involved, clinicians can get involved. We really believe in collaborative research.
Now, Kari, is there somewhere where people can go to donate to show support for what you're doing?
100%. They can go to tsalliance.org.
Now, you mentioned that you do have the event in Hollywood. Can you tell us a little bit about that event where people can get tickets or more information?
Yes, I sure can. So our Hollywood event is called Comedy for a Cure. It is our 18th annual event. We're really excited. It's hosted by Jim O'Hare and Alex Scooby. It is on April the 7th at Academy LA in Hollywood. People can go to comedyforacure.org to get tickets, to donate auction items, to make a donation, to buy tables. So we'd love to have as many people as possible. We're really excited about our performers this year. We have Kate Flannery and the Tony Guerrero Quartet. We have Orny Adams, our headliner, and John Henson as one of our performers.
Wow, that sounds exciting. I might have to go down to Hollywood and check it out. I'm in Long Beach, not too far. So I might have to go there and see what you have going on. So you're doing so much to create awareness. You have the fundraisers, you have places on the website where people can go to donate. I think it's wonderful what you're doing. I wanted to ask another question about when babies are young, and is this something, because I never heard of it. I think I said that earlier. I have never heard of it. Is this something that is automatically tested for when babies are born? You know, because some doctors test for a lot of different things. Or is this something that you want to start having doctors begin to test for?
So that is a wonderful question. I think you're talking about newborn screening, where right, where people, like when a baby's a newborn and you get a little spot of blood off their heels and you can test for lots of diseases. That's one way. So to qualify to be added to newborn screening, you have to have an intervention. You have to have a way to intercede to improve the quality of life for those babies. So that's the importance of our PREVENT trial, because if that is successful, then that is one of the things that we need to prove to be added to the newborn screening. So another thing is to develop a really quick and inexpensive way to test for TSC. But if people suspect that their children might have tuberous sclerosis complex, one of the things that would be really important to do is to get in with a neurologist. And specifically, we have almost 70 TSC clinics in the United States. On our website, tsalliance.org, people can actually go there and find a clinic near them. In Southern California, you have lots of options. There are about 5 clinics in your area. So it's really important that they're evaluated with our diagnostic criteria. As I said, it's a couple of different features that need to be found to diagnose for TSC. There is a genetic test. It is mainly used once a clinical diagnosis is made.
That definitely makes sense. Now, for the testing, for being added to the testing, what will help you aside from the clinical trials? I mean, do you need more volunteers to go out and increase awareness? What other things will assist in expediting that process?
So research right now is the main thing that we have to do. So we need to show that the clinical trial is successful and that we're right in the middle of it. So that's the first thing. We need to develop what's called an assay, or a really easy way to test for TSC off of a little spot of blood. Then we need to test that against blood spots from prior years then we need to pilot it in different states. So when that happens, yes, we're going to need lots of volunteers. Right now, we need to recruit for that clinical trial. So if somebody has a suspected infant with tuberous sclerosis complex and they'd like more information about the PREVENT trial, they can contact us at the TS Alliance at 1-800-225-6872. Really important. We definitely need volunteers to make sure that that clinical trial is recruited fully.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that and the recruitment of it. Again, let's talk, Kari, please speak directly to the parents and tell them what to look for. You know, I know we talked about it, but what to look for, what to look out for. What you're speaking of kind of reminds me of a commercial. I don't remember what it was. It was Pampers or Huggies or something, but it showed the parent with her first baby. And when you have your first child, I have to get this, but when you have your first child, you want to make sure everything is just safe and it's not going to hurt the baby, and you do all these things. But you know, by your second baby, you're like, he'll be all right. He'll survive. You take the baby's pacifier falls on the floor. You pick it up, look it off a little bit. Here you go. With our first baby, you know, every time, and I'll tell a personal story on this one. My children now are 25 and they were 20 and 22. But when my daughter was born, my daughter had, I guess, this very healthy appetite. We would just get food and eat and everything, you know, normal appetite. Now my son, when he was born, and as he probably about at the age 2 or 3, he hardly ever ate at all. He wouldn't eat anything, but he would just go. He's a boy. He would run around and just run around and run around. And I'm a parent because I'm used to this child who, again, just would eat. You know, and I'm stressed out, and I'm like, is he okay? Is he malnutrition? Is he going to be all right? And finally, I took him to the doctor, and the doctor simply said to me, he'll eat when he's hungry. And I'm like, okay, you know, but because of the difference in children, I didn't even know which was correct, what was right, what am I looking for? So sometimes as parents, we want to make the best decisions, but we don't necessarily know what we're looking for. So again, I know that was a long question, but Kari, please speak to the parents and just, you know, tell them about the research opportunity with the clinical trials and what they can watch out for.
Sure. So again, the best way or the most efficient way to know that your probable diagnosis is the heart tumors. So they can look for that on routine ultrasound. If somebody has TSC and they're having children, then they can have their child evaluated when they're born for TSC and would qualify for the trial. If you have TSC, you have a 50% chance of passing that on. And again, TSC can manifest itself from very mild to very severe. And we don't know right now where people will fall in that syndrome. So I don't want to scare anybody either. White spots on the skin are something to look for. But lots of cases, not all, are diagnosed after the first seizure. And I think the important thing is if you have a baby and you see that startle reflex, but it's repeated in clusters over and over, or a baby just that head nods repeatedly like that's something you should take out your smartphone, take video of, and make sure that you get in to see a neurologist. But for our PREVENT trial, we're really looking at people before they have that first seizure. And the best way to identify those infants is through ultrasound.
Now, I just want to make sure I'm clear, because if I'm clear, I think most of our listeners and our viewers will be clear. And I guess the reason I'm repeating myself and asking the question is because you, and again, this is me trying to understand, not necessarily questioning you, but you mentioned that people aren't necessarily without, you call it the test that they take that you want to be added to. I'm sorry. With the blood, the infant blood.
Oh, the newborn screening panel. Mm-hmm.
The newborn screening panel. So you're not yet in a part of the newborn screening panel, but you mentioned that they can be evaluated when the baby's born. And then you also mentioned that they can be doing it when they're in the womb. They can look through the ultrasound.
Yes.
I remember having two children, and it may have been something where I didn't know, that's what they were looking for. But is this standard for doctors to look for this while they're doing ultrasounds?
So that Some ultrasound technicians and radiologists who are really savvy will know that. So hopefully this broadcast will help raise awareness of that. Again, 2 or more tumors can lead to a probable diagnosis of tuberous sclerosis complex. So thank you for helping raise awareness. I guess I should take a step back and say that 2/3 of the cases of TSC are through what we call spontaneous mutation. Neither parent has it. So not every infant is looked at for tuberous sclerosis complex because it can be random. And that's the difficult thing about it. Yet we know that if we can identify TSC early and get ahead of it, even before first seizure, then these babies have an even better chance of improved quality of life. Did I answer your question?
You answered the question perfectly, because what I heard, and I want to repeat this back to you again because this is such a perfect topic. What I heard was that savvy doctors, savvy ultrasound technicians who are aware of it, this is something that they can look for. And obviously more of them should be looking for, but it's not something that has been practiced across the board.
Right. I think through our PREVENT trial, we're really raising awareness of the importance of looking for these heart tumors in utero. And sometimes if you get an ultrasound too early, like 12 weeks, you're not going to see that. It's got to be a little midpoint, maybe 18, 19, 20 weeks where you can really see the heart chambers. Really important at that point.
Oh, okay. You have cleared it up amazingly. Now, again, if you're just now tuning in, I want to go ahead and welcome Lucinda, Kari, Jimmy, Risa, a couple more people who are tuning in. We are coming down to the last few minutes of the show. So if you have any questions, if you have any comments, please jump right in there and ask Kari, Rosbeck, your questions or comments. And while we're doing that, Kari, what I like to do at the end of every show is just allow my guests to speak directly to the audience and let them know what you want them to take away from your interview.
Absolutely. It has been such a privilege to work for the Tuberous Sclerosis Alliance for almost 18 years. And I have seen the organization go from a disease for which we had no treatments to today we do. I know the power of research and I understand the impact of raising awareness. So even if you personally do not have tuberous sclerosis complex in your family, help us raise awareness and help us raise funds. What we learn about TSC really can have an impact on epilepsy and autism and even cancer, because our research is a model system for those other diseases. So help us increase awareness, and you could be helping somebody with those other more common diseases.
Well, thank you. I love it, Kari. I want to thank you for being a guest on today's episode of Ask Sharifah.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are so welcome, and I want to thank everyone for tuning in. A lot of information, but as always, especially with this situation that we are building awareness of, please go ahead and share this video, because like I say, friends don't let friends miss out on Ask Sharifah. And you never know, there may be a friend of yours that is in this situation, is looking for a solution, is looking for help, and they don't know the answer is out there. So please go ahead and share this information, share this video with your friends, your family. If you know a doctor, especially a pediatrician or someone in the newborn area, I love babies, of the hospital, they're aware, because not just in this instance, but always knowledge is power. And sometimes we suffer because we simply just do not know. So again, thank you for tuning in. Share the video. If you're interested in being a guest or sponsorship opportunities or watching more of my interviews, please visit the website at AskSharifah.com. Until then, everyone have a wonderful day.